Well, out front tonight, Republican Congressman Mike Turner. He sits on the House Intelligence Committee. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks, Pamela.
I want to start with this frustration among some White House aides and advisors that the president hasn't really allowed his team to form an adequate defense on impeachment. Do you think that the White House has made a mistake here by not having a more robust legal and communications team in place by now?
Well, you know, it's certainly part of the travesty for today. It was certainly evidenced by the panel that you just had. As you have people on your show who are talking about the testimony that was happening today, but yet not one person saw it. All these hearings are happening in secret. Adam Schiff is making certain that no one sees what occurs down there. I can tell you one thing, though. I did sit in the hearing, and Tim Morrison absolutely did not say that there was quid pro quo, even though a lot of your panelists seemed to believe that they did. And I think that certainly was Adam Schiff's intention, was to put the White House on a disadvantage, just as you're at a disadvantage, because no one other than those who are on the Intelligence Committee know what's happening down in that room. And that's really what I think is unfortunate, because the American public deserve to see this. They deserve to know, and you deserve to know. When you have a panel that's doing analysis, you should have witnessed what Tim Morrison was saying.
And part of what happened today with this vote is that moving forward, there will be more public hearings. I mean, does that take away the Republican talking point?
Well, it's not really guaranteed. I mean, the resolution says that he can have public hearings. He could have had public hearings before. There's nothing that's new in this. There are some things in it, obviously, that are very troubling. For example, it says that the ranking member, the Republican on the committee, can't pick who he wants to question the witness. They can only ask staff. And I don't understand why they wouldn't let other members of Congress, why they would limit members of Congress's questions to those who they call.
So you say that basically the White House, it's not their fault because this is all closed-door testimony and there's really no way for them to have a better strategy.
Right.
But you didn't answer my question. But do you think that they should have a more robust communications and legal
Well, I think certainly as this evolves, they will, and they're going to have to. But even today, most of what you're reporting on is speculation. But I can tell you this.
And a lot of it, though, does come from his opening statement as well that was released, where he does say, look, that this transcript was a fair and accurate representation, that I didn't think it was legally problematic, though he was clearly concerned that it would be negative for the White House if it was leaked out. And you say that he didn't say that there was quid pro quo. But the reporting is that he was told by Sondland that the president would release that military aid in exchange for Ukraine announcing the investigations into Biden. Is that not accurate?
Well, I mean, first off,
you don't have to say something is quid pro quo for it to be quid pro quo. That's communicated, in other words.
What's important is that we shouldn't have to talk about what the reporting is. You should have seen this today. This should have been open to all of the public. Now, one thing I think it's also important, and I'm very concerned about moving forward. Kurt Volker and Tim Morrison both have firsthand knowledge of what was going on and what occurred, right? A lot of the other people, like Vendeman and Taylor, are talking about in their testimony, you see that in the opening statements that have been released, things that they heard or other people that they talked to. I'm very concerned that we could be in a situation where Adam Schiff decides to call forward those who talked to other people instead of those people who can tell us directly what they actually know.
Well, Vindman was on the call, as we know.
He was on the call, but he testified on things that he had no direct knowledge of. And those are things that Tim Morrison has. He reported to Tim Morrison. He was a military detailee to Tim. Tim is the guy who ought to be testifying in public, and he should have been testifying in public today.
But Vindman did have some knowledge. He wasn't he didn't interact with the president like a Tim Morrison did. But Vindman did.
Well, remember, this is about the president, right? I mean, so if you have Ambassador Kurt Volker and Tim Morrison at the National Security Council, both having direct knowledge of what's occurring. You have the President of the United States, you have the President of Ukraine, and we're all getting their statements and testimony. Those who are on the outside, who have heard from others, who have had conversations with third people about what they think or believe or might feel, really aren't important.
And I know that is something that the White House officials I speak to really hone in on, this the secondhand information. It's hearsay. You have the president who continues to say that it was the perfect phone call. In fact, he just said it today in a radio interview. Here's what he said.
The transcript of the call that I had with the Ukrainian president is a perfect and totally appropriate document.
You have said that this call was not okay.
Right. I don't agree with that. I believe that it's not
do you wish the president would stop saying that?
There's a difference between okay and impeachable. Take, for example, the vote that we had today. There was a vote today for impeachment proceedings by a number of people who already were on record to impeach the president before this call even happened. So today was a political vote. This is a political impeachment.
Yeah, but it also gave
it's not
Republicans have been asking for more transparency in the process, and that's
Well,
what
we'll
it
have
gave
to see,
Republicans.
because all it says
isn't that
is-
what you guys wanted?
All it says is that he can have public hearings. It doesn't require it. It doesn't require that the transcripts be released. It certainly doesn't require that tomorrow you get to read Tim Morrison's testimony, which I truly believe that Tim Morrison's testimony today was devastating for them. And if you had that, you'd be kind of surprised as to what the contrast is between what people who have actual knowledge are saying and those who are speculating.
But I have to ask you, now that the inquiry is underway, are you open to it proceeding? And are you open to voting for impeachment if it goes that way for you?
Well, I mean, I have already sat through hearings and read transcripts, and there is not one thing in these hearings and transcripts. Now, obviously, I can't tell you what people said, but I can tell you what people didn't say. No one has walked in and said, I have direct knowledge that an official with authority on the United States government, on direction of the President of the United States, told Ukraine that they must undertake an investigation of the Bidens, the 2016 elections, or Burisma, or their aid will not be released.
And if that is revealed, would that be
I think it
enough for
certainly
you to
changes
vote?
the dynamics, but I can
But
tell
what
you
about
this,
Mick Mulvaney saying it from the podium at the White House? So yeah, it was that.
Well,
and then of course he walked
actually
it
said
back.
a portion of that, and he didn't say all that, and then he did walk it back. But the issue is this: is they've been asking a lot of people. Remember, the whistleblower came forward, and they didn't say, and the whistleblower didn't say that there was this quid pro quo on the aid in these investigations. They said actually that there was quid pro quo for you must dig up dirt on my opponent. Well, that's been proven to be absolutely not the case. And of course, the whistleblower had no direct knowledge of the things they were speaking, but they cited people that did. These are people that we've interviewed and we've had depositions for, and still, the circumstances and the facts aren't changing, other than the testimony that you've read of the telephone call as to how it was reported.
But the testimony has largely backed up what the whistleblower has said.
Well, you don't know that. You've not seen any of it.
Well, we've seen many of the opening statements. We saw Taylor's opening statement where it talked about...
Right, and so I reread Taylor's opening statement when I was here, and I would encourage you to do the same, because he says, I believe, I was told, I felt. There is not...
And then didn't Morrison back up what he said in his testimony? That, yes, actually, I did tell Taylor that.
There were portions that related specifically to conversations with Tim Morrison, where Tim Morrison did say that I backed that up. Others that he said he did not. But Tim Morrison did not back up that there was quid pro quo with the Ukraine and either funding or a meeting with the President of the United States.
Did Tim Morrison say that Sondland told him that the president said he would release the funding if the Ukraine announces his investigation into Biden?
I can't tell you what he did say, but I can tell you what he didn't say. And what I did tell you is that he didn't say any of those things that have been reported. But now here's the thing that I make a point to frequently, which I think is kind of important. It's not proper. It's illegal. We're not permitted to go into a classified hearing or a confidential deposition and walk out and tell you what happened. But it is not against the law for people to come out and lie to you. And I think the reports that you're getting are a lot of people that are misrepresenting for their own purposes what's happened behind closed doors. I assure you that what was happening behind closed doors supported the impeachment of the President of the United States. It would not be happening behind closed doors. It would be happening.
You would have been happy for all of the witness testimony to be open.
They all should have been. They all should have been.
Thank you so much, Congressman.
Thank you. I appreciate it.